This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
China reports record lows for new coronavirus cases as numbers spike in Italy. Sudan's Prime Minister supporters celebrate after he survives an assassination attempt. And explosions rock the Afghan capital as two rivals declare themselves president in separate ceremonies. This is CGTN. Welcome to Africa Live with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. We'll bring you the details on those stories and others in just a moment. But first, Uche Okoronko with the Days of Business headlines. Uche.
Thank you, Beatrice. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. Oil prices plunge over 30% after Saudi Arabia steps up production over a failed Opec deal. And we look at an initiative in Côte d'Ivoire helping to keep children of cocoa farmers in school. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, it is back to you, Beatrice.
Uche, thank you. And let's begin with the very latest on the coronavirus. And 9 African countries are in the news tonight as coronavirus cases rise steadily, with 95 cases in the continent so far. Egypt leads after confirmed cases rose sharply from 48 Sunday night to 55 on Monday. One person, a German national, has died there. Algeria is the second highest with 20 patients. 16 of the cases are from a family in Blida province, south of the capital. South Africa has just announced 4 new cases, raising its total to 7. The 4 were part of a group that had traveled to Milan in Italy. And Senegal reported its 3rd and 4th cases of the virus on Wednesday after confirming their first case about 7 days ago. And on Sunday, Tunisia counted its 2nd case from a citizen returning from Italy, one of the worst affected countries so far. The first patient was also a Tunisian returning from Italy and is still under observation. Another case of the virus has been reported in Nigeria, bringing the total number to 2. Nigeria was the first sub-Saharan country to confirm a case in the continent last month. And Cameroon confirmed 2 of its only cases hours apart on Friday. The first case was from a French national who arrived in the capital Yaoundé on February the 24th. The second patient, a Cameroonian citizen, was said to be in close contact with the first victim. Well, Morocco reported its 2nd case of COVID-19, a Moroccan citizen who returned to the country from Italy late Wednesday. And Togo has quarantined 1 person who fell ill as a result of the virus. The 42-year-old woman recently traveled to France, Turkey, Benin, and Germany. Now, around the globe, China has reported a record low of new coronavirus cases and deaths. The majority of the new cases are in Hubei province, where the outbreak began. China's total number of confirmed cases stands at nearly 81,000. Over 70% of them have recovered, while more than 3,000 have died. Outside China, more than 30,000 cases have been reported in over 100 countries. Italy is the worst hit outside Asia, with over 7,400 cases and the highest mortality rate worldwide. South Korea has the largest number outside China, with nearly 7,500 confirmed cases and over 50 deaths. Iran has the largest outbreak in the Middle East. It has reported more than 7,100 cases and 237 deaths. Among the 4 worst hit countries, China and South Korea are seeing a steady decline in new cases. Iran saw the biggest surge on Friday, while Italy reported the largest jump of new cases on Monday. Well, let's now go into the details of that South African announcement of 4 more coronavirus cases, which raised the total number in South Africa to 7, the 3rd highest in Africa. Well, CGTN's Renee Delcam is joining us live from Cape Town. Renee, what more can you tell us about these 4 new cases?
Well, I can tell you that all 7 people, as you said, were in Italy. They were apparently on a skiing trip. They returned to South Africa earlier this month. In fact, 1 person went straight to the UK. 9 returned to South Africa. The first patient identified on Thursday last week, the person who tested positive, was a 38-year-old man in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. His wife, a 38-year-old woman, obviously, also has tested positive. The couple has 2 kids, but they are apparently negative and are in quarantine at this stage. So out of the 9 people in South Africa who have been confirmed positive, 6 in KwaZulu-Natal, 1 in the Gauteng province. Obviously, these people have come into contact with numerous other people in the past few days since they've been back in the country, and the government and health authorities are in the process of trying to track all those cases, all those contacts that these people have been in touch with since the 1st of March. Another thing I can tell you is that we found that the school where these kids, of the first couple of patients, the school was closed down on Friday, and all activities at the school shut down over the weekend because of fear that other people might have come into contact with the parent who returned as part of this group. I can also tell you that latest information is that patient number 1 is said to be responding well to treatment and apparently making progress. So chances are he may be out of the woods pretty soon. His wife still being tested and in hospital for treatment. But we wait to hear about 2 other South Africans who were also part of the group, and their fate will be known hopefully within the next 24 or 48 hours.
So, Renee, clearly the government is ongoing with the contact tracing there in South Africa. But how is the country reacting to this news?
Well, the president and other politicians have called for calm. At this stage, I can tell you there's no level of panic right now. People are starting to buy more hand sanitizers. They're starting to stock up of loo paper, etc. But there is certainly a sense of fear and anxiety. Everywhere you go, people are talking about this. People who have illnesses are particularly concerned. But the government has given the assurance that the 10 hospitals around South Africa, which will be dealing with a possible outbreak, where there will be a surge of numbers, they feel that these hospitals are prepared to handle such a situation. South Africa has had a pandemic plan in place in the past few years, and that will probably come into play soon. Ministers sitting right at the stage talking about how to handle the situation going forward. No travel ban yet on the table for South Africa, but that is certainly being discussed at the highest level. What will happen if schools have to be closed, or what will happen with major conferences and other major events in the near future. All of that very much on the table here in South Africa, where, as I say, there is certainly a level of anxiety about the novel coronavirus.
All right, CGTN's Renee Delcam joining us there from Cape Town with that update. Thank you. Meanwhile, Uganda's health ministry says more than 20 foreign nationals who had arrived from countries greatly affected by COVID-19 will be returned home. The foreigners were in the country for a business summit. CGTN's Leon Sinyange has more.
The 22 foreigners are expected to return to their countries this Monday. According to the health ministry officials, none of the foreigners had exhibited signs and symptoms of coronavirus. They had, however, declined to undergo the 14-day self-quarantine. There are currently no confirmed cases of coronavirus in Uganda, but ministry officials say it is taking all necessary precautionary measures to prevent any cases in the country. Authorities have also banned all non-essential travelers from the affected countries of Europe and Asia. Already, the 2020 United Nations G77 and China summit scheduled for mid-April have been postponed because of the fears about coronavirus. Leon Sanyange, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
China is leading a massive construction project at the heart of the new Egyptian administrative capital. The business district will have 20 towers, among them the tallest in Africa. But with the outbreak of COVID-19, there are concerns that completion of these projects might slow down. However, as CGTN's Adel Mahroui tells us, China and Egypt are fighting the virus while keeping a steady progress in projects.
At the center of Egypt's forthcoming new administrative capital, China is building the country's first skyscrapers. Contractors in the new capital are racing time to be ahead of the tight schedule President El-Sisi has set. There were fears the outbreak of COVID-19 could have affected the progress in this crucial project to Cairo, but the Housing Ministry says it has so far seen no significant impact.
We don't see any significant impact on the project. The minister himself inspected the site and found the construction is proceeding at full speed. Some parts are even ahead of schedule. We've also noticed extreme care from the Chinese company on the hygiene measures and monitoring systems for COVID-19.
The entire Chinese engineering team and workers are living on site. Following the COVID-19 outbreak, none of them have traveled, fearing possible slowdowns in the construction. The only process the virus affected was importing some parts of the 20 towers from China.
Some components like the shields and the curtain walls and other metal and glass components come from Wuhan. With the outbreak of the virus, the production got delayed, but we were well covered here. With importation resuming, we received procedures from China about how these products are checked. We have no concern regarding the spread of the virus.
The jewel of the project is the iconic tower. Designed to reach a height of 385 meters, it's going to be the tallest building in Africa.
On June 30th, Egypt is scheduled to celebrate a landmark achievement in this iconic tower. The building is planned to reach more than 200 meters high, and everyone seems determined to make COVID-19 do not stand against that achievement. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
The outbreak of coronavirus caused concerns among African nations about its impact on large projects being done by Chinese firms. Ethiopia's $4.8 billion Grand Renaissance Dam will, upon completion, become Africa's largest hydropower dam. Several Chinese firms are among the builders of this dam. And as CGTN's Girum Chala reports, the current coronavirus outbreak in China has affected the speed of the dam's construction.
The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is now 71% complete and counting. Work is being done 24/7 with no interruptions. Several global construction firms, including those from China, are working on the project.
We have increased contractors who are working on the dam's turbine and metal works from 1 to 4. 2 of them are engaged in playing the turbines and the other 2 are assigned on the metal part of the work. This is done to double the speed of the work on site. These contractors have worldwide operation experience of building mega dams like that of ours. All technical adjustments are done to expedite the process of work to finish the gird as soon as possible.
But the global coronavirus outbreak is affecting the construction of what will be Africa's #1, world's 10th largest hydropower generating dam. The Ministry of Water, Irrigation and Energy says there have been delays in shipment of equipment ordered from China.
Due to the outbreak of the coronavirus, some equipment ordered from China has been delayed. Some are taking weeks and others are taking months for delivery. But we take this as pressure, not only on us, but for the entire global economy. And though there are effects, I can say so far there's no significant pressure on the dam due to this.
Egypt has taken issue with Ethiopia's construction of the mega dam. Cairo wants Ethiopia to sign a deal proposed by the United States. It has in the past warned it will use any means necessary to stop Ethiopia from filling its reservoir if the flow downstream is adversely affected. Ethiopia's Deputy Prime Minister sees matters differently.
This generation of Ethiopia has begun this precious and common project with courage. We have walked the truth, and now we are here. We would like to tell anyone at this moment that no one will stand on the way of us utilizing our natural resources. We shall preserve to sustain our rights till the end. We shall never ask anyone's permission for this to happen. On the tripartite relationship, however, we will always consider mutual benefits, and listening to one another will be given high value at all times.
China is Africa's biggest partner in infrastructure development. The progress of many projects in the continent will depend on how quickly China's economic hubs recover from the effects of the outbreak. It is clear that for Ethiopia's $4.8 billion dam to be completed, China's full return to production will play a key role. Grumtara CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Well, let's now take a look at what it means to self-isolate in order to help contain the spread of the coronavirus. CGTN's Wilkista Nyabwar explores the do's and don'ts of protecting oneself and others from COVID-19.
As nations across the world report new cases of the coronavirus, Kenya is one of the countries with travel restrictions. Those flying in from Italy, South Korea and Iran are now required to self-quarantine for 14 days. Moses Masika, a medic, explains that quarantine means to restrict the movement of people who may have been exposed to the contagious disease but haven't tested positive.
Somebody who is quarantined, remember, has no symptoms. They are quarantined because of their risk. By risk, I mean you have traveled to an area you think you are exposed, then you can do the self-quarantine.
This means staying away from others and minimizing interaction with the rest of the world. Epidemiologists recommend that people exposed to COVID-19 should remain in quarantine for 14 days.
Because we know the incubation period, a period that after infection one develops symptoms, may take anything from 2 days to 14 days. On average, it's 5 days.
But quarantine doesn't mean that one can't live with their roommates or family. The U.S. Center for Disease Control recommends that people keep to their own bedrooms and wear a face mask around others. It also recommends that one does not share dishes, towels, or bedding. Keeping a distance and washing one's hands often are the best ways to prevent the spread of the virus. And after 14 days of constantly monitoring oneself, it's back to the doctors for a checkup.
So if you don't develop any symptoms after 14 days, then you can say you are fairly safe to interact with others. It means even if you are exposed, you are not infected.
However, scientists are yet to establish the risk of reinfection among patients who have recovered.
For us to know whether you can get reinfected, we need to know how long the immunity lasts. So we need to follow up the people who are infected for several months, and if possible even years, to see how long the antibodies that they develop to clear the infection, how long these antibodies will last in the body.
Scientists, however, believe that if testing for coronavirus improves, there will be less of a need to stay secluded for the full 2-week period. Wilkista Nyabwar, CGTN.
Well, let's now take a look at other stories making the headlines today. In Sudan, Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok is in a safe and secure location after surviving an assassination attempt in the capital, Khartoum. State radio says the Prime Minister's convoy had been hit by gunfire and a projectile. It is not yet clear who carried out the attack, but hundreds of Sudanese took to the streets to celebrate Hamdok's survival. Here's CGTN's Tulisha Balala with more.
Sudan's Prime Minister has survived an assassination attempt after his convoy was attacked in the capital, Khartoum.
The Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok's convoy was targeted this morning in a terrorist attack as he was heading from his house to the Prime Minister's office. The convoy was targeted by a terrorist explosion and gunfire below Koba Bridge. The Prime Minister was not injured. Neither was the group accompanying him, except one member of the entourage who was slightly injured on his shoulder as he fell off his motorbike.
A short while after the incident, Abdallah Hamdok tweeted that he was safe and nothing would stand in the way of Sudan's political transition. Citizens in the country who support Hamdok's administration came out in jubilation. It's not yet clear who carried out this attack. There were several damaged vehicles at the site of the blast, and officials have confirmed that no one was hurt. Hamdok was appointed to head Sudan's transitional government last August, a few months after the overthrow of longtime President Omar al-Bashir. News reports say since the appointment of Hamdok, his government has come up against resistance as it tries to implement economic reforms. Authorities have called it a terrorist attack and have launched an investigation to find out who was behind it. Thuli Shabalala, CGTN.
The Intergovernmental Authority on Development has condemned the assassination attempt on Sudan's Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok following a car bomb attack on his official convoy in Khartoum today. IGAD has also expressed solidarity with the government and people of Sudan. CGTN's Girum Chala has more.
IGAD's condemnation against the assassination attempt on Sudan's Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok was pretty strong. The Executive Secretary Warkana Gabeyo said the attack seeks to reverse the people-driven democratic gains that have been witnessed in the Republic of Sudan. He also said that the interests and the aspiration of the people of Sudan will reign over all acts of terror. Abdallah Hamdok, the former UN Economic Commission for Africa Deputy Executive Secretary, is currently not only the Prime Minister of Sudan, he is also the chair of the IGAD Assembly of Heads of State and Government. And so, according to analysts, for IGAD, the incident is a major source of concern given Hamdok's position within the organization. On the other hand, the regional community in its message has urged all parties in Sudan to continue holding open, comprehensive and inclusive political dialogue as the only avenue to ensuring long-term stability, peace, prosperity in that country. Grumjala CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Unidentified armed men in Burkina Faso attacked 2 villages mainly inhabited by ethnic Fulanis. 43 civilians were killed and 6 others wounded. The raids occurred on Sunday in Yatenga province in the northern part of the country. The government has dispatched officials of National Defense Ministry to the scene. Clashes between farming communities and Fulani villagers have increased in West Africa in recent years, with Burkina Faso and neighboring Mali recording high numbers of fatalities last year. Now, rescuers have found 2 people trapped under the rubble of a collapsed hotel in East China's Fujian province. They say the survivors might be a mother and her 10-year-old child. Rescuers have talked to them 3 times, but are unable to get them out at the moment. They have been trapped for over 50 hours since the hotel used for coronavirus quarantine collapsed on Saturday. 12 people have been killed so far, while 20 are still trapped and 51 have been rescued. Authorities say part of the building had been undergoing renovation before the accident. The Chinese government has ordered all cities throughout the country to adopt strict safety measures as businesses resume operations nationwide. The directive requires an old building to be fully checked to prevent accidents. Explosions have rocked the Afghan capital Kabul as 2 political rivals declared themselves president in separate ceremonies. Incumbent leader Ashraf Ghani has taken the oath of office for a 2nd term, while his main challenger Abdullah inaugurated himself in a similar event. This comes days after he escaped an ISIL attack, the first major assault in the country since the US and Taliban signed a deal in February. Follow-up peace talks between the Taliban and Afghan government were set for Monday, but many feared the political standoff between Ghani and Abdullah could derail the process. Last year's vote went into a month-long deadlock after Abdullah disputed Ghani's victory, citing electoral fraud. You're watching Africa Live, still ahead on the program. 11 people died from Lassa Fever in Nigeria in under a week. And in Tunisia, the 10th International Aerospace and Defense Exhibition attracts participants from world powers. In Nigeria, it's a double battle for health authorities, COVID-19 and Lassa Fever. And it's the latter that the country is currently struggling to contain. In the past 1 week, 11 people have died of Lassa Fever, as CGTN's Deji Badmus reports.
Lassa fever is a seasonal disease that has ravaged Nigeria for a very long time now, and despite the best efforts of health authorities here, the disease continues to recur. Now, this season's outbreak has been among the worst in recent years. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, puts the death toll at 132 this year alone. In the whole of 2019, the death toll was about 167, meaning the number this year could be higher. 27 of the country's 36 states are currently affected, and in the last 1 week, there have been 85 new confirmed cases. The number of suspected cases is even higher. Health workers, too, have been at the receiving end of the virus, with 27 of them dying from contracting the disease this year. I have actually been speaking with one of the country's top consultant virologists about the high death rate this year, and here is part of the reasons he gave.
Maybe we didn't recognize this on time because we have the ribavirin. We have the drug, and I'm sure the NCDC has a lot of, they've stockpiled, they usually stockpile ribavirin and other medicaments during the dry season when we know that the scourge will be very high. So those, the deaths recorded might be as a result of that. Missing cases, then cases not brought to the attention of hospitals and so on. The virus again is not stable, so it changes. So it changes, and that can account for the reason why it's more aggressive, so to say, this year.
Now, worst hit by the Lassa fever outbreak are rural areas where health facilities are almost non-existent or extremely poor. The government says it has since stepped up its effort at containing the outbreak, but health workers here say the government isn't doing enough and want a national emergency declared on Lassa fever. But so far, that hasn't happened. Deji Badmus, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
The United Nations envoy to Libya has announced that he will be stepping down, citing stress and poor health. For nearly 3 years now, Ghassan Salame has been trying to broker peace in Libya, as CGTN's Adel Mahroui reports.
Good afternoon.
On June 22, 2017, the United Nations announced a new person in charge of its support mission in Libya, Ghassan Salame. It was an uphill battle from the start. Despite his service as an advisor to the UN for Iraq and Myanmar, not everyone in the region believed the former Lebanese culture minister could handle the conflict in the divided oil-rich nation. Salame faced criticism throughout his tenure and struggled to gain support from either of Libya's warring sides.
Like his predecessors, Salame too has failed to gain the trust of Libya's factions. Both the GNA and the LNA have accused him of supporting the other. He tried to create a middle ground and achieve a certain political vision in Libya, but the people on the ground did not want either.
Following the Berlin conference in January, Salame began 3 tracks for negotiations: military, economic and political. But despite his efforts, both of Libya's rival factions eventually boycotted the proposed talks.
Well, unfortunately, Salame's tenure did not only fail to reach any concrete outcomes, but also made the conflict worse in recent months. This has made people on the ground move towards armed conflict rather than talks.
Salame in the past spoke of the lack of cooperation with an international community, especially those that backed either of Libya's warring sides.
The international parties involved in Libya have been supporting conflict and fueling division. If there was hope in Libya, Salame would not have resigned.
Salame is the 6th UN envoy to Libya as the conflict enters its 10th year.
The UN will probably face difficulties in finding a replacement for Salame. It needs someone fit to lead a conflict as complex as Libya and at the same time gain the entire confidence of the Security Council. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
To Tunisia now, and the country has been hosting the 10th International Aerospace and Defense Exhibition taking place in Djerba. The show had over 100 exhibitors from different countries, including China, the US and Pakistan. CGTN's Adnan Chauchi reports.
The program includes an air show as well as B2B meetings, technical conferences program on the aerospace sector and defense sector updates. Tunisian President Kais Saied inaugurated the exhibition and welcomed foreign delegations.
We are proud of hosting the world's top aircraft manufacturers and developers here on the island of Djerba. MNAT aircraft part suppliers and manufacturers are based in Tunisia. Together, we can win the challenge of land, sea and air transport.
Air shows are on the agenda, including F-16 and Fighting Falcon parades. About 100 aircraft and non-flying machines of the largest operators in the field were presented in static and dynamic configurations.
I'm here to attend the International Aerospace and Defense Exhibition, and I think it's a very good initiative by the Tunisian authorities, and it is a great place to introduce our products. We have participated in this event in a very big way. Our companies are over here with their products, and we hope to project and advertise our equipment to Tunisia and the other partners and nations in the region.
Avionav is a leading Tunisian company developing and exporting light aircraft. More than 1,500 of its models are now flying, and around 50 light aircraft come off its production line each year.
We are manufacturing carbon fiber and aluminium light aircraft. We have clients in the whole world, in America and China, Europe as well as South Africa. Now we are presenting 3 different planes, including a flight simulator and the amphibian model.
Several Tunisian and foreign companies have exhibited their latest planes, programs and services in the aerospace and defense sectors. The International Aerospace and Defense Exhibition has provided many opportunities for Tunisian and foreign entrepreneurs to meet international key players of the aerospace and defense industry, to expand business opportunities and to build new partnerships. Adnan Chauchi, CGTN, Tunis.
Well, let's now go to Uche Okoronkwo for the latest business news. Uche.
Thanks, Beatrice. And coming up on Africa Live Biz. Oil prices plunge over 30% as Saudi Arabia steps up production after a failed OPEC deal. And we look at an initiative in Côte d'Ivoire helping to keep children of cocoa farmers in school.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Now, oil prices fell through the floor in early trading on Monday, tanking as much as 30%. That's after Saudi Arabia slashed its crude prices for buyers. Brent crude later trimmed losses to about 20% at $35.53 a barrel. The Saudi Kingdom is reportedly preparing to open the taps in an apparent retaliation for Russia's unwillingness to cut its own output. Now, the U.S. benchmark commodity is likely to see its worst day since 1991, when it lost 33%. Last week, Saudi Arabia, the rest of OPEC and Russia failed to agree on production cuts to combat falling prices due to fears that the ongoing COVID-19 epidemic will halt world economic growth. And Tunisia has cut its economic growth forecast for this year to 1% from the 2.7% forecast in the 2020 budget. Now, the move comes as the country's vital tourism sector takes a big hit from the ongoing COVID-19 epidemic. Tunisia will also seek a new loan deal with the International Monetary Fund. The North African nation struck a deal with the fund in December 2016 for a $2.8 billion package to overhaul its sluggish economy. Now, last June, the IMF dispersed a $247 billion loan tranche from that deal. However, since then, negotiations on a sixth installment have stalled due to a political crisis following the October election. Tunisia's current IMF deal will end in April this year. Now, the world celebrated International Women's Day on Sunday, March 8th. In South Africa, two young women have carved out a niche in the country's billion-dollar diamond industry. Kwame Diamond is one of the very few women-owned polishing businesses in the world. They are accredited by world-renowned diamond producer De Beers and are bringing their own shine to the industry. Here's CGTN's Julie Shire with their story.
These South African female entrepreneurs are the diamonds in a rough male-dominated industry. They bring the feminine touch to a sector long associated with illegal dealing and human suffering.
We need to change the face of these diamonds. African diamonds are labeled black diamonds, but it's also ignorance, in my view, that would come into play, because you never know the struggles of another human being until you are in their shoes, you understand? So the wrongs that the diamonds have done, we felt in South Africa, we're coming back, we're going to do this right. We're going to make sure that we show the world that these diamonds are doing good.
Tiny, delicate little gems are turned into beautiful bespoke pieces at the Kwame Diamonds factory in Johannesburg. The business is entirely women-owned and run mainly by females.
We've taken, young girls and boys that have been in the streets of Soweto. We've brought them here, we gave them skill, and now they're able to feed their families. So we sleep well at night, knowing that we are contributing in our small way. We're changing our own environment and not expecting to see change from other people when you have got a responsibility yourself. So we're quite proud of that, and we employ about 12 people. 80% of those are women, because we believe in empowering women. We believe in simply that, you feed a woman, you feed a nation.
Creating jobs is not their only vision.
We educate our communities about diamonds. Diamonds are an investment. Instead of taking your money and spending your money on an expensive bag that loses value as soon as you put something in it, invest in a diamond. It doesn't have to be $1 million diamond, but you start a small collection.
Despite a shrinking global appetite for diamonds, Matoli and Ramodiba have managed to stay ahead of the pack through innovation.
We found that in instances where there's a downturn, you need to be innovative. You need to come up with other things that might be appealing to the consumer. Even if they feel squeezed, they feel the need to buy. They are a girl's best friend, but they are fast becoming a man's best friends as well. And definitely you cannot go wrong with diamonds.
These enterprising young sisters are now eyeing the global market. Julie Shara, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And moving on now, households in cocoa growing areas face the realities of rural poverty. Some parents are now forced to put their children to work to reduce their labor costs on plantations. Now, this in turn deprives children of the chance to develop and advance themselves. CGTN's Daniel Arab Moy now explores how one initiative is changing this in Côte d'Ivoire.
In Western Africa, cocoa is a commodity crop grown primarily for export. For example, 60% of Côte d'Ivoire's export revenue comes from its cocoa. As the chocolate industry has grown over the years, so has the demand for cheap cocoa. On average, cocoa farmers earn less than $2 per day, an income below the poverty line. As a result, they often resort to the use of child labor to keep their prices competitive.
It used to be difficult because when you can't give money to your child to go to school, sometimes the child refuses to go to school completely. And then if we have to go to the fields to go to work, we have to take the children to the fields to help us there.
But now things are set to change. Women in plantations around this village are turning to a network of small saving banks with the goal of protecting their children. The International Cocoa Initiative has been working since 2007 towards the goal of ending child labor in Côte d'Ivoire and neighboring Ghana.
We have set up what we have called the Feminine Cell for Economic Reinforcement. This is a village savings and credit association, as is done in most rural communities, with the fundamental difference that this association must be involved in activities that ensure the protection of children.
Empowered by working together, these women are also challenging traditions in a rural culture where the father of the family makes all the decisions.
It's great, I'm so glad. I'm proud for the women. I'm really happy with the decision they made. If things are not going well with us men, they are the only ones who can help.
Achieving success in the fight against child labor in the cocoa sector is a shared responsibility. Over the years, cocoa growing communities, governments, and the global chocolate and cocoa industry have taken their fight against the act to a new and much higher level. They say the goal is to redouble efforts in order to ultimately eliminate what the International Labour Organization calls the worst forms of child labor. Daniel Arab Moy, CGTN.
Well, that's all for now on Africa Live Biz, but later on Global Business Africa, we'll take a deeper look at how oil prices have behaved today and what to expect as the week progresses. Of course, all that coming up top of the hour. For now, back to you, Beatrice.
Uche, thank you. And we still have more news for you here in the program. Here's what's ahead. Abidjan hosts international festival to promote traditional arts in contemporary circus.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Panater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Let's go to Côte d'Ivoire, where an international circus festival has been attracting thousands of spectators in Abidjan. This third edition has brought together artists from all over the world, including Europe, Asia, America, and Africa. Performers and artists have been showcasing their skills over the week-long event. In Africa, and in particularly Côte d'Ivoire, the circus is little known. The festival aims to introduce and promote these skills on the continent. This year focuses on promoting traditional arts in the contemporary circus. There were 2 free street shows in the streets of Cocody and Abidjan. The goal was to reach as wide as an audience as possible. Festival organizers said it's necessary to modernize the African circus without losing its original tradition.
I did not know that there was so much work being done at the circus level in Ivory Coast. We saw artists who pleasantly surprised us with their talents.
It was a great show. It was very varied with the presence of many countries. We had a lot of emotions watching the artists perform.
In our traditional arts, many things are very close to the circus or are. We do not classify them as being circus simply because it is not done on a stage. On the other hand, as soon as you transport these traditional arts on a stage, we immediately speak of a circus.
To South Africa now, where Audrey Anderson has launched a solo exhibition at Gallery 2 in Johannesburg. The artist, based in Johannesburg, is known for her work in ink, a practice that she describes as a relationship that involves skill, harmony, dialogue, and intuition. Sijutienzo Lisa Njamel has more.
Audrey Anderson believes that intuition is an interesting and mysterious sense we all have, which gives us a greater understanding of our world. This is the premise of her work. Her works are infused with an underlying sense of mystery as layers of images slowly unfold, awakening the imagination.
So you start with intuition, you work from your feelings. Because I feel like actually intuition in today's sort of our everyday environment is disappearing very slowly, and we're just seeing what's obvious in front of us, and we're forgetting about this innate intuition we have all inside of us.
The artist is currently exhibiting her work here at Galleries 2 in Johannesburg.
This show is called Stand a Little Less Between Me and the Sun. I decided to do a body of work that followed an internal sense of intuition instead of a heavy concept-based, thought-out things.
Her medium of choice is ink.
Everything is ink. Everything is ink. I love ink. Ink, you can draw with it, you can paint with it. It tells you what to do, you can't tell it what to do. You have to have a very Buddhist mindset when you're working with ink, because you can't, like with oil paint, go over it again and again. So one stroke and then it's done, otherwise it's ruined.
Audrey's artworks take inspiration from everyday scenes, often captured in the city of Johannesburg, but also in rural areas beyond the urban landscape.
So for the last, I think, 2-3 years, I've been going on missions to remote places of South Africa just to see who my country is. And yeah, so that's actually where most of the work comes from.
Audrey continues to showcase her artwork at international art fairs and exhibitions. Lassa Fever for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
And your sports news coming up next. Here's what's ahead. Former South African batsman and World Cup winning coach Gary Kirsten opens an artificial cricket turf in Cape Town.
How would you create your legend? On the field.